On my wedding day, the most overdressed person in the room was not me. It was my mother-in-law. Head to toe silver sequins, huge beehive hair, full glam makeup like she was walking a red carpet. She wanted everyone looking at her. What she did not know is that I had already planned a very quiet revenge. I secretly swapped the wedding dress she picked for one she hated, and I set up a full cereal bar at the reception after she had literally said, "I forbid it." Before I tell you exactly how it all went down, put yourself in my shoes for a second. Imagine you're trying to plan your wedding, and the biggest obstacle isn't money, or vendors, or your partner. It's your future mother-in-law trying to control every single detail, like it's her big day. What would you do? If you like stories about controlling in-laws, chaotic weddings, and petty little victories, hit that subscribe button, drop a like, and share this video with someone who's dealing with their own Sandy. Now, let me tell you how a bowl of cereal became my favorite act of revenge. I met my husband, Jim, when I was 19 and he was 24. The age gap sounds bigger than it felt. ID always lived life fast. I finished high school early, started working full-time as a teenager, and was paying my own bills while most of my friends were still figuring things out. When Jim and I started dating, it didn't feel like older guy, younger girl. It felt like two adults moving at the same speed. A few weeks into our relationship, I met his mom, Sandy. We went over to his parents' place with a pizza to hang out and watch a movie. Sandy opened the door, gave me a quick polite hi, and disappeared into the kitchen. That pretty much set the tone. Every time I was there, Shed flowed in and out, a quick comment about the weather, a little small talk about work, then gone again. She didn't seem interested in me or in our relationship, but she wasn't openly rude either. Just distant. Honestly, I thought that was a good thing. ID heard horror stories about crazy mother-in-laws. I figured, okay, she keeps her distance. I can live with that. Fast forward a couple of years. Jim and I had gotten serious. We talked about marriage, kids, all of it. One night, after dinner at my parents' house, he got down on one knee in the living room and asked me to marry him, right there in front of my mom and dad. I cried, said yes. My mom cried harder than me. My dad cracked corny jokes because he's that guy. It was perfect. The only weird part? Jim's parents weren't there. Later, when I asked why, he said he had invited them and they were busy. Busy. On the night their only son was proposing to his girlfriend. The next day we called them so we could tell them the news together on speaker. Jim said, "Mom, Dad, we're getting married." The reaction on the other end was flat. His mom went, "Oh, that's nice. Congratulations," in the same tone you'd use if someone said they bought new shoes. I remember hanging up and feeling a tiny knot in my stomach. Something was off, but I pushed it down. I was too excited to dwell on it. About a week or two later, that knot made sense. It was like Sandy suddenly realized, wait, this is actually happening. He's really going to marry her. And she flipped from indifferent to obsessed. She went from barely there to inserting herself into every wedding decision. Anything I suggested, she argued. If I said, "ID loves simple centerpieces with baby's breath and white roses," she'd insist. "Fresh flowers are a waste of money. You should use silk. They last forever." If Jim said, "I think Italian food would be nice, pasta, lasagna, garlic bread, so nobody leaves hungry," she'd shoot back, "No, no, no. You need Mexican food. It's more fun. Everyone loves tacos." We picked a hilltop venue with a gorgeous view of the city because we loved the idea of a sunset ceremony. She wrinkled her nose and said, "A garden wedding would be so much better. Grass, trees, flowers, that's what people expect. On top of that, She suddenly got weirdly territorial with Jim. If I held his hand, she'd swoop in and sit on his other side, clinging to his arm. If we walked together, she'd find a way to slide between us and latch onto him like she was the one getting married. Jim did try to set boundaries. "Mom, relax," he'd say. "It's our wedding. We want your input, but we're making the decisions." She would pout and say she was just trying to help and that I was too young to know what I was doing. Then she crossed a line. One day my mom called me and said, "You'll never guess who phoned me." It was Sandy. According to my mom, Sandy had calmly explained that I was too young to be planning a wedding and that it would probably be better if they handled the important decisions to adult women who knew what they were doing. My mom, who does not play when it comes to her kids, shut that down fast. She told her, "My daughter is an adult. She works full-time and pays her own bills. If anyone is in charge of this wedding, it's her." When I heard that, something in me snapped. Up to that point, I'd been trying to be nice, respectful, accommodating. After that call, my patience dropped to about 0. And then came the wedding dress. Sandy had been bragging for weeks in front of anyone who would listen that she was going to buy the wedding dress as her big gift. She'd say, "I have an envelope of cash set aside. You can pick anything you want. Don't worry about the price." It sounded generous. It also sounded rehearsed, like she wanted witnesses. Meanwhile, I already had a dream dress saved on my phone. It was a fitted satin gown, off-white, with delicate straps and a long train classic, clean, very Audrey Hepburn. The version I'd first seen had a high-low hem, shorter in the front, long in the back. I didn't love the hem, but I loved everything else. The day of the appointment, we went to the bridal shop, me, my mom, a couple of close people, and Sandy. We walked past rows of dresses. I spotted my dress, the one I'd been staring at online for months. I pulled it from the rack like it was made of glass. "I definitely want to try this one," I said. Sandy looked at it and made a little face, but didn't say much. We pulled a bunch of options, and I tried on several first. Some were pretty, some were okay, none of them felt like me. Then I put on the satin dress. I stepped out in front of the mirror, and, for the first time that day, I felt like a bride. My mom got teary. My friend said, "That's it. That's your dress." Sandy took one long look and went straight into teardown mode. She picked at the fabric and said it looked cheap. She said the cut made me look shorter. She said the high-low hem was awful. And then my personal favorite, Jim would hate that dress. It wasn't just I don't like it. It was, let me systematically destroy every single thing you like about it. I wish I could say I stood my ground right then and there, but I didn't. I was still thinking about that envelope of cash, about her paying for the dress, about not wanting to start a war. So I let her steer me into another gown. A tulle mermaid, sweetheart necklace, but generic. The kind of dress that could be on any stock photo site. The kind of dress she would have worn. When we went to pay, Sandy marched up to the counter with her precious envelope. She handed it to the clerk with a little flourish, like, "Here is my big moment." Then she walked out of the store. I was still changing, so I didn't see her leave. I came out to the counter just as the saleswoman was counting the cash, and her face said everything. There's less than $200 in here," she said. "This doesn't even cover the veil." The dress was hundreds more than that. Sandy had seen the price tags. She knew exactly what she was doing. She picked the expensive dress, made a show of paying for it, and left my family with the bill. My mom and dad quietly pulled out their cards and made it work. On the car ride home, staring out the window, I felt this cold clarity settle in. That was the moment I decided I was done playing nice. Months passed, and eventually the bridal shop called to say my dress was in. I told my mom we're going. Just us. At the store, I pulled the consultant aside and asked, hypothetically, if my dress is here and hasn't been altered yet, can I exchange it? She checked the policy and said, as long as it hasn't been altered or taken out of the store, you can swap it for another dress of equal or greater value. Game on. My mom and I went right back to the rack with the satin dress I loved. This time, they had a full-length Vergiano high-low hem, just a smooth, elegant line, and a long train. I tried it on. I didn't need anyone's opinion. I knew. This is my dress, I told my mom. She smiled and said, honestly, it always was. We exchanged the tulle dress for the satin one. And, Harris, the best part, it was cheaper. With a difference, I got a proper corset bra, all the alterations I needed, and an upgraded cathedral-length veil with beading. And it had pockets. Actual paquets. If you know, you know. We didn't tell Sandy a word. As far as she knew, I still had the dress she had chosen, the one that matched her taste. Wedding planning continued. One evening, we were talking through food options with some family, including my dad. He joked that guests always show up starving, and sometimes you just want a bowl of cereal before dinner. I laughed and said, you know what would be funny? A cereal bar at cocktail hour. Like a little breakfast station with dispensers and different kinds of milk. People around us chuckled and said it would be cute. Sandy did not laugh. She stiffened like I'd insulted her ancestors. In my son's wedding, you're not putting a cereal bar, she said, dead serious. Absolutely not. That is tacky. I forbid it. That word forbid stuck in my head. She said it like she was the CEO of our marriage. Outside, I shrugged and played it off. Relax, it was just an idea. Inside, my petty side took notes. I pulled the venue coordinator and catering manager aside later and told them the whole story. They thought it was hilarious and agreed immediately. So we planned a full cereal bar for cocktail hour. Big clear dispensers, all different cereals, regular milk, almond milk, oat milk, lactose-free, the works. Cute bowls, silver spoons, little name cards. Wedding day arrived. I spent the morning in the bridal suite getting my hair and makeup done, surrounded by my mom, my friends, a lot of hairspray, and a whole lot of nerves. Sandy was at a salon across town getting ready. That meant she had no idea what was happening with the decor, the food, or most importantly, my dress. By the time I was zipped into my satin gown, veil pinned and bouquet in hand, I finally felt like everything was exactly how it should be. I'd fought quietly for this, and now it was here. I waited behind closed doors for my cue. From where I stood, I could see the aisle through a crack. That's when I saw her walk in. Sandy made her grand entrance in a full-length, skin-tight, silver sequin mermaid gown with a sweetheart necklace exact style she thought I was wearing. Her hair was piled into a beehive. Her makeup was full glam. She sparkled like a disco ball. Silver wasn't even one of our wedding colors. Guests turned to look because you literally could not look at her. I could almost hear her internal monologue, this is my moment. She still thought I'd be following behind her in the dress she'd picked, making her the unofficial star of the show. Then, the music started. The doors opened. My dad offered his arm. I stepped onto the aisle in my satin dream dress, the one she hated, the one she'd mocked as cheap and unflattering. I saw Jim's face light up. I saw guests turn and smile. And I saw Sandy's expression shift from confusion to realization to tight-lipped irritation before she forced her face back into a polite smile. There was nothing she could do. The ceremony had started. All eyes were on me for the right reason. She wasn't going to stand up and shout, "That's not the dress I approved." The ceremony itself was beautiful. We said our vows, exchanged rings, all the classic stuff. For that 20 or 30 minutes, nothing else existed but us. Then came cocktail hour. As guests flowed into the reception space, servers brought out trays of appetizers. The bar opened, and in one corner, the cereal bar gleamed in all its forbidden glory. Dispensers filled with everything from sugary kid cereal to healthier options. A little sign that said build your own bowl. Carafes of different milks. Bowls stacked high. People's faces lit up when they realized what it was. At first, folks approached it laughing, taking pictures, making jokes. Then they started actually serving themselves. Grown adults in suits and gowns were walking around with bowls of cereal, grinning like kids at a sleepover. The photographers spent a good chunk of time just taking candid shots of people devouring cereal and laughing. Jim and I decided we had to get in on it. We each grabbed a bowl, picked our favorites, and were about to take the first bite when Sandy appeared next to us. Her smile was tight. "What is this?" she asked, voice low but sharp. I looked at her, then at my bowl. "A cereal bar," I said. "People love it. Nobody's going to be hungry waiting for dinner now." Her jaw clenched. "I told you I didn't want this," she hissed. I said, "Absolutely not." I forbade it. I just smiled. "And yet," I said, taking a slow, very intentional bite, "here we are. Everyone's having fun." She looked around. Couples were taking selfies with their bowls. Kids were bouncing with excitement. Older relatives were laughing with spoons in hand. The cereal bar was a hit. She couldn't throw a fit without looking like the villain. So she did what she always does when she can't control the narrative. She walked away, martyr face on, sequins flashing. I stood there in my dream dress, next to my husband, eating cereal at my own wedding, and I felt something I hadn't felt the whole engagement, completely at peace. That cereal bar wasn't just about snacks. It was about the principle. A few years went by. The first part of our marriage was rocky in one specific area, figuring out how to handle Sandy. She never understood why we weren't a super tight, constantly together family unit. She didn't get why we didn't come running every time she snapped her fingers. We ended up in therapy. We learned about boundaries. That no is a full sentence. That keeping your distance from toxic behavior doesn't make you the bad guy. We stopped inviting her to everything. We stopped bending our lives around her moods. There were arguments, sure. There were silent stretches. There were events we chose to skip. But our home got quieter, calmer, more ours. 10 years later, our marriage is solid. We have a life we love. And every now and then, when I'm cleaning out the closet, I unzip the garment bag and see that satin gown. I slide my hands into the pockets and remember the girl who walked down the aisle in a dress she fought for, while a fully sequined mother-in-law sat there realizing she no longer had all the strings in her hands. Sometimes I wonder if I went too far swapping the dress without telling her, setting up the cereal bar after she'd forbidden it. Was that immature? Petty? Then I think about the envelope with less than $200. The "you're too young to decide." The attempt to take over my wedding, my choices, my life. And I realize I didn't scream at her. I didn't curse her out. I didn't humiliate her in front of everyone. I just stopped letting her be the director of my movie. I put on the dress that felt like me. I served the cereal she didn't approve of. And I built a marriage where her opinion is not the main character. That, to me, isn't cruel. It's self-respect. So that's the story of how I married the love of my life in the dress my mother-in-law hated, ate cereal at my own wedding out of pure spite, and discovered that sometimes the smallest acts of rebellion are the ones that stick with you for years. Now I want to know, if your future Emile told you, "I forbid it about something in your wedding," what would you do? Would you back down to keep the peace, blow up and confront her, or quietly do it anyway like I did? Tell me in the comments. I'm dying to hear your mother-in-law and wedding drama. Don't forget to subscribe for more true stories of messy families, toxic in-laws, and deliciously petty revenge. Hit that like button if you enjoyed this one, and share it with a friend who needs a little push to start setting boundaries. I'll see you in the next story.